I'm 29M and have been married to my wife Rachel, 27F, for 3 years, together for 6. My best friend Kevin, 30M, has been in my life since college. We're talking 12 years of friendship. He's been my best man, I was his, and he's practically family. About 4 months ago, Kevin went through a messy divorce. His ex-wife cheated on him with a co-worker, and he was completely devastated. Rachel and I were his main support system during this time. We had him over for dinner constantly, let him crash on our couch when he couldn't handle being alone, and Rachel was amazing about listening to him vent. I was actually proud of how compassionate Rachel was being. She'd make his favorite meals, give him pep talks when he was spiraling, and even helped him set up his new apartment. Kevin seemed to be getting back on his feet, and I thought we'd all handle the difficult situation really well. But then things started feeling different. It began with small things that I initially brushed off. Rachel started putting her phone face down when Kevin was around, which she'd never done before. She'd get texts and quickly flip her phone over or take it with her to another room to respond. Kevin started coming over more often, sometimes when he knew I'd be at work. Rachel would mention casually that he'd stop by to grab something or that she'd helped him with errands. Nothing suspicious on its own, but the frequency was increasing. Then I noticed Rachel was dressing differently when Kevin was coming over. She'd change out of her comfortable clothes into nicer outfits, do her hair, put on makeup. When I asked about it, she said she was just trying to look presentable for company. The biggest red flag was when I came home early from work last month and found them sitting really close together on the couch. They jumped apart when I walked in, and both looked guilty as hell. Rachel claimed they were just looking at something on her phone, but the energy in the room felt charged. Rachel's behavior toward me has changed too. She's become distant and irritable, especially when I ask questions about her day or her time with Kevin. She accuses me of being paranoid and says I'm being ridiculous. She's also become protective of her phone in ways she never was before. She used to leave it lying around and wouldn't care if I grabbed it to check the time or weather. Now she takes it everywhere, even to the bathroom, and gets anxious if I'm near it. Last week I noticed Rachel had changed her phone passcode. When I asked her about it, she said she'd been meaning to update it for security reasons. But she's had the same code for years and never cared about phone security before. Kevin's behavior has changed too. He used to be completely comfortable around me, but now he seems nervous when we hang out. He avoids eye contact and changes the subject when I bring up Rachel or ask about his visits to our house. He's also started canceling our usual guys' nights, saying he's too tired or has other plans. But then Rachel will mention that he stopped by while I was at work. So clearly he's not too busy to see her. The most damning evidence happened 3 days ago. I was getting ready for bed when Rachel's phone buzzed on the nightstand. The notification preview showed a text from Kevin that said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow when he's." The message got cut off, but I could see enough to know it was about me and the meeting up. When I asked Rachel about it, she said Kevin was probably just confirming plans to help her with something while I was at work. But when I asked what she needed help with, she got defensive and said I was being controlling by questioning her friendships. She accused me of not trusting her and said I was creating problems where none existed. I've tried talking to Rachel directly about my concerns, but she shuts down every conversation. She says I'm being paranoid and that she's just trying to be a good friend to Kevin during his difficult time. But her explanations don't add up. Why the secrecy? Why the change behavior? Why can't she just be transparent about what's going on? I've also tried talking to Kevin, but he gets weird and defensive too. He insists nothing is happening and that I'm reading too much into innocent interactions. But if everything is innocent, why does everyone act so guilty? I'm losing sleep over this. I can't concentrate at work. I'm snapping at people, and I feel like I'm going crazy. My gut is screaming that something is wrong, but I have no concrete proof. That's why I'm considering going through Rachel's phone. I know it's a violation of privacy, and I know it's not the ideal way to handle this situation. But I need to know the truth, and no one is being honest with me. If Rachel is cheating, I need to know so I can decide what to do about my marriage. If she's not, then maybe seeing proof of innocent conversations will help me let go of these suspicions. I'm planning to do it this weekend when Rachel is in the shower. I know her new passcode because I saw her enter it yesterday, and I should have enough time to check her messages with Kevin. I feel terrible about even considering this, but I don't know what else to do. Rachel won't talk to me honestly, Kevin won't talk to me honestly, and I can't live with this uncertainty anymore. My brother thinks I should just confront them both directly and demand answers. My coworker thinks I should hire a private investigator. But both of those options feel extreme, and going through her phone seems like the quickest way to get clarity. I know this makes me sound like a crazy, controlling husband, but I'm not usually like this. I've never been jealous or paranoid in previous relationships. Something about this situation feels genuinely wrong. and I need to know if I'm losing my mind or if my instincts are correct. So am I in the wrong for planning to go through my wife's phone without permission? I know it's not ideal, but given the circumstances, it feels like my only option to get the truth. Update. 2 days later. I can't believe I'm writing this right now. My hands are literally shaking. I went through Rachel's phone yesterday morning while she was showering. What I found destroyed me completely. Their messages go back 6 weeks. Started innocent. Kevin thanking her for support. Rachel checking on him. Normal stuff. But then it shifted. Kevin telling Rachel how much he appreciated her. How she was the only person who understood him. Rachel saying she cared about him more than she should. Then they started talking about attraction. Kevin saying he'd always noticed how beautiful Rachel was. Rachel admitting she'd felt drawn to him too, but never acted on it. The messages escalated fast. They talked about chemistry, about moments they'd shared, about how hard it was being around each other without touching. Then came the planning. When I'd be at work. Opportunities to be alone. How to keep me from getting suspicious. But the worst part was reading what Rachel wrote about me. She called me completely clueless and said I was too trusting for my own good. She felt guilty, but said she'd never felt this way about anyone before. Kevin was worse. He wrote that he'd always been jealous of what Rachel and I had, and my support during his divorce gave him the perfect opportunity to make his move. They hadn't slept together yet, but they were planning to. Messages about his apartment, about when they could meet without getting caught. It was happening this week. The message that broke me was from 2 days ago. Rachel wrote that she thought she was falling for him and didn't know what to do about her marriage anymore. I sat on our bathroom floor reading these messages, and my entire world just collapsed. My wife and best friend were planning to hook up while I was at work, and I've been helping them do it. When Rachel got out of the shower, I was still sitting there holding her phone. She saw me and went white as a sheet. I told her I knew everything, holding up the phone. Rachel started crying immediately and said she could explain. I told her to explain what? That she was planning to sleep with my best friend? That she thought I was a clueless idiot? That she was falling in love with him? She tried to say it was just flirting, that nothing physical happened. But I'd read their plans. I knew exactly what was supposed to happen this week. I asked her if she loved him, and she stared at me for a long time before saying she didn't know. That was it. I packed a bag and left. Rachel was sobbing, begging me not to go, promising to cut contact with Kevin. But I couldn't even look at her. I'm at my brother's house now. I also called Kevin and told him I knew everything. He tried to deny it at first, then admitted he had feelings for Rachel when I said I'd seen the messages. 12 years of friendship. Gone. I told him never to contact me again. My brother thinks I should file for divorce immediately. Says if Rachel could do this with my best friend, she's not who I thought she was. Maybe he's right. I don't know what to do anymore. Update 2. 1 week later. This has been the worst week of my life, but I needed to come back and update everyone. I met with a divorce lawyer on Monday. She was straightforward about my options. No kids, simple finances, so divorce would be relatively uncomplicated if that's what I wanted. The lawyer told me to document everything and save copies of the messages I'd found. She said emotional affairs aren't legally the same as physical ones, but they could still be relevant. After talking to the lawyer, I felt like I had more clarity. Just having options made me feel less trapped. I decided I needed to have a real conversation with Rachel about what happened. I couldn't keep avoiding her forever, and I needed to hear her explanation without the shock and anger of first discovering the messages. I asked Rachel to meet me at a coffee shop where we could talk without the emotional weight of being in our home. She agreed immediately and said she'd been hoping we could talk. When I saw Rachel, she looked terrible. She'd clearly been crying nonstop and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Part of me felt bad for her, but I reminded myself that she'd brought this on herself. Rachel started by apologizing over and over. She said she knew what she'd done was wrong and that there was no excuse for her behavior. She acknowledged that she betrayed my trust and our marriage. She explained that her feelings for Kevin had developed gradually over the weeks she'd been helping him through his divorce. She said she'd initially just felt sorry for him, but that turned into something deeper. Rachel said she'd been confused about her feelings and hadn't known how to handle them. She admitted that instead of talking to me or distancing herself from Kevin, she let the emotional affair continue and get worse. She swore they had never been physical and that she'd never intended for things to go as far as they did. She said the messages about meeting at his apartment were just fantasy and that she would never have actually gone through with it. I told Rachel that I didn't believe her about not planning to sleep with Kevin. The messages I'd read were pretty explicit about their intentions, and they'd been making concrete plans about when and where. Rachel broke down, crying again, and admitted that she probably would have slept with Kevin if I hadn't discovered the messages. She said she'd been caught up in the excitement of the affair and hadn't been thinking clearly. She begged me to give her another chance and said she'd do anything to save our marriage. She offered to go to therapy, couples counseling, and to be completely transparent about everything going forward. Rachel said she'd realized through this that she loved me and didn't want to lose our marriage. She said her feelings for Kevin had been based on the drama and excitement of the affair, not real love. I listened to everything Rachel said, but I didn't feel any better. Her explanations made sense, but they didn't change the fact that she'd betrayed me with my best friend. I told Rachel that I appreciated her honesty, but that I needed more time to decide what I wanted to do. I said I couldn't just forgive and forget something this significant, even if she was genuinely sorry. I also told her that regardless of what happened with our marriage, I would never be able to have Kevin in my life again. I said that if we stayed together, she could never have any contact with him again. Rachel agreed immediately and said she'd already blocked his number and deleted him from social media. She said she understood that Kevin could never be part of our lives again if we were going to have any chance of moving forward. The conversation lasted about 2 hours. While it was helpful to hear Rachel's perspective, it didn't give me the clarity I was hoping for. I still felt angry and betrayed, but I also missed my wife and the life we'd built together. After we talked, I decided to go back home. I couldn't stay in my brother's house forever, and I needed to figure out if being around Rachel felt impossible or if it was something I could work through. The first night back home was weird and tense. Rachel was walking on eggshells around me, and I felt like I was seeing our house and our relationship through completely different eyes. I kept thinking about all the times Kevin had been in our home, probably having feelings for Rachel that I was completely oblivious to. I wondered how many conversations they'd had about their attraction while I was in the next room. Rachel has been trying to give me space while also showing that she's committed to rebuilding our relationship. She's been taking care of everything around the house, giving me time alone when I need it, and not pressuring me to make decisions. She's also started seeing a therapist to work through what led to her affair. She said she wants to understand why she made the choices she did so it never happens again. I've been going to therapy too, both individually and with Rachel. The couples counselor has been helpful in giving us ways to communicate about this without it turning into screaming matches. Through therapy, I've started to understand that Rachel's affair wasn't necessarily about me or our marriage being fundamentally broken. The therapist explained that affairs often happen when someone is vulnerable and makes poor choices, not because they don't love their spouse. That doesn't excuse what Rachel did, but it helped me understand that this might be something we could work through rather than something that dooms our marriage. I've also learned that my decision to go through Rachel's phone, while not ideal, was understandable given the circumstances. The therapist said that when someone is being deceptive, it's natural for their partner to seek evidence to confirm their suspicions. She said that in a healthy relationship, going through someone's phone would be a violation of trust. But in a situation where trust has already been broken, it's sometimes the only way to get the truth. I'm still not sure what I want to do about my marriage. Some days I feel like we can work through this, and other days I feel like the betrayal is too big to get past. The therapist says that's normal and that I don't need to make any permanent decisions right now. She's told me to focus on processing my emotions and understanding what I need to feel secure in the relationship again. One thing that's been helpful is that Rachel has been completely open about everything since I discovered the affair. She's given me access to all her accounts and devices, and she's been honest about her feelings and thoughts. She's also been patient with my questions and emotional reactions. I've had moments where I've been angry and accusatory, and she's handled those without getting defensive or trying to minimize what she did. Kevin has tried to contact me a few times, but I've ignored his calls and messages. I have nothing to say to him, and I don't think there's anything he could say that would make me feel better about his betrayal. Rachel says he's also tried to contact her, but she's blocked him on everything and hasn't responded. She's promised to tell me immediately if he tries to reach out through other means. I'm taking things one day at a time and trying to focus on what I need to heal from this betrayal. I don't know if Rachel and I will stay together, but I'm at least open to the possibility of working through this. The therapist says that marriages can survive affairs if both partners are committed to doing the work required to rebuild trust. Rachel seems committed, and I'm willing to try, even though I'm not sure it will work. I'll probably update again in a few weeks once I have more clarity about what direction my marriage is heading. Update 3. 2 months later. A lot has happened since my last update, and I wanted to share where things stand now. Rachel and I have been in intensive couples therapy for the past 6 weeks, and it's been more helpful than I expected. Our therapist has given us actual tools for rebuilding trust and communicating about the affair without it derailing our entire relationship. One of the most important things I've learned is that healing from an affair isn't linear. I'll have good days where I feel like we're making progress, followed by bad days where I feel angry and betrayed all over again. The therapist says this is completely normal and that I need to be patient with myself as I work through these emotions. She's also helped Rachel understand that my healing process can't be rushed, even when she's eager to move past what happened. Rachel has been incredibly committed to the work required to rebuild our relationship. She's been in individual therapy twice a week, working on understanding why she was vulnerable to having an affair in the first place. Through therapy, Rachel has realized that she was dealing with some insecurities about our relationship that she never communicated to me. She was feeling like we'd fallen into a routine and that I was taking her for granted. That doesn't excuse her affair, but it helps me understand that there were underlying issues in our marriage that we both need to address. The therapist has helped us see that the affair was a symptom of problems we both contributed to, even though Rachel's response was completely inappropriate. Rachel has also been completely transparent about her activities and communications since the affair. She's given me access to all her devices and accounts, and she checks in with me throughout the day about where she is and what she's doing. Some people might think that level of monitoring is excessive, but it's been necessary for me to start trusting her again. Rachel has been patient with my need for transparency and hasn't complained about the lack of privacy. The hardest part has been dealing with the loss of Kevin's friendship. I've been grieving not just the betrayal, but also the end of a 12-year friendship that was really important to me. Kevin has continued trying to contact me, and a few weeks ago, he showed up at my work. He wanted to apologize and explain his side of the story, but I told him I wasn't interested in hearing it. I told Kevin that what he'd done was unforgivable and that I never wanted to see him again. He kept saying he was sorry and that he'd made a terrible mistake, but I walked away. Rachel told me later that Kevin had also tried to contact her through a mutual friend, but she'd refused to engage with him. She said she understood that any contact with Kevin would be a betrayal of my trust and our marriage. We've had to navigate some awkward social situations since our friend group knew how close Kevin and I were. We told a few close friends that we're no longer in contact with Kevin due to a personal issue, but we haven't shared the details. Most people have been respectful and haven't pushed for more information. A few mutual friends have tried to play peacemaker, but I've made it clear that there's no reconciliation possible. One of the turning points in our recovery happened about 2 weeks ago. Rachel and I were having a particularly difficult conversation about the affair, and I was feeling overwhelmed by anger and hurt. Instead of getting defensive or shutting down, Rachel just sat with me while I cried and told me she understood why I was in pain. She said she would do whatever it took, for however long it took, to help me heal. That moment helped me see that Rachel was genuinely committed to our marriage and not just trying to avoid the consequences of her actions. It was the first time I felt like we might actually be able to work through this. We've also been working on rebuilding intimacy and connection in our relationship. The affair obviously damaged our physical and emotional intimacy, but we've been taking small steps to reconnect. The therapist has given us exercises to help us communicate better and spend quality time together without the affair dominating every conversation. We've been going on regular date nights and try to remember what we enjoyed about each other before this happened. I'm not going to lie. There are still moments when I feel angry and wonder if I'm making a mistake by trying to save our marriage. But those moments are becoming less frequent and less intense. I've also had to work on forgiving myself for not seeing the signs of the affair sooner. I was beating myself up for being clueless and trusting, but the therapist helped me understand that those aren't character flaws. She said that when you love someone, you naturally want to think the best of them. Rachel and Kevin took advantage of my trust, but that doesn't mean I was stupid for trusting them. I still think I was justified in going through Rachel's phone, given the circumstances. I had legitimate reasons to be suspicious, and Rachel was being deceptive about her relationship with Kevin. The therapist agrees that while snooping isn't ideal, it was understandable given the situation. She said that in healthy relationships, partners should be transparent enough that snooping isn't necessary. Rachel has said she's actually glad I went through her phone because it forced her to confront what she was doing before the affair became physical. She thinks she might have continued down that path if I hadn't discovered the messages. We still have a lot of work to do, but I'm cautiously optimistic about our future. Rachel has shown through her actions that she's committed to rebuilding our marriage, and I'm starting to believe that we can create something stronger than what we had before. The therapist says that couples who successfully recover from affairs often end up with better communication and deeper intimacy than they had previously. I'm hoping that will be true for us. Trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time and consistent effort from both partners. Rachel has to continue being transparent and accountable, and I have to be willing to gradually open myself up to trusting her again. We've set some boundaries and agreements that will help us move forward. Rachel has agreed to continue individual therapy for at least another 6 months, and will stay in couples counseling for as long as needed. She's also agreed to avoid situations where she might be alone with male friends, at least until we've rebuilt a stronger foundation of trust. I know that might sound controlling, but it's what I need right now to feel secure. Rachel has been proactive about suggesting these boundaries herself, which shows me she understands the seriousness of what happened and is committed to preventing anything like this from happening again. We've also talked about the warning signs we missed and how to communicate better about relationship issues in the future. Rachel has promised to talk to me directly if she's feeling disconnected or unhappy instead of seeking emotional support from other men. I've committed to being more attentive to our relationship and not taking Rachel for granted. While her affair wasn't my fault, I can see how some of my behaviors might have contributed to her feeling neglected. The therapist has helped us understand that rebuilding our marriage isn't about going back to how things were before the affair. It's about creating a new relationship that's built on better communication, deeper trust, and stronger boundaries. One unexpected positive outcome has been that Rachel and I are talking more openly about our feelings and needs than we ever did before. The affair forced us to have conversations about our relationship that we'd been avoiding for years. We're also being more intentional about spending quality time together and maintaining our connection. We've started doing weekly relationship check-ins where we talk about how we're feeling and what we need from each other. I know some people will think I'm insane for staying with Rachel after what she did. I understand why divorce seems like the obvious choice, and there were definitely moments when I thought that was the only option. But I've realized that my marriage is worth fighting for, and Rachel has shown me that she's willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had. Not everyone gets a second chance after an affair, but we're both committed to making this work. The hardest part has been accepting that our marriage will never be exactly what it was before. The innocence and complete trust we had is gone, and we have to build something new on the foundation of what we've learned. But in some ways, our relationship might end up being stronger. We're communicating better, we're more intentional about our connection, and we both have a deeper appreciation for what we almost lost. This path isn't right for everyone who deals with infidelity. Some betrayals are too severe to recover from, and some people aren't capable of doing the work required to rebuild trust. But for us, it feels like the right choice. Rachel has shown genuine remorse and commitment to change, and I've found that I'm capable of forgiveness even when I didn't think I would be. We're taking it one day at a time and not putting pressure on ourselves to have everything figured out immediately. The therapist says recovery from an affair typically takes 2 to 5 years, so we're prepared for this to be a long process. I'll probably give one more update in a few months to let everyone know how we're doing. Right now, I'm cautiously optimistic about our future together, even though I know we still have a lot of work ahead of us. Update 4. 6 months later. I know this will be controversial, but Rachel and I are doing really well. Better than we were before the affair, which I never thought would be possible. The therapy has been life-changing for both of us. We've learned to communicate in ways we never did before, and we've addressed underlying issues in our relationship that we've been ignoring for years. Rachel has continued her individual therapy and has done incredible work on understanding why she was vulnerable to having an affair. She's developed much better coping strategies and communication skills. More importantly, she's maintained complete transparency and accountability throughout our recovery process. She's never once complained about my need for openness or tried to rush my healing process. The trust between us has been rebuilt gradually but steadily. I no longer feel the need to monitor Rachel's activities or communications, and I genuinely believe she's committed to our marriage. We've developed new traditions and ways of connecting that are specific to our post-affair relationship. We do monthly relationship check-ins, weekly date nights, and we've learned to address problems immediately instead of letting them fester. The most surprising thing has been how much deeper our intimacy has become. Having to rebuild our connection from scratch has forced us to be more intentional and vulnerable with each other. Rachel often tells me that while she regrets the affair and the pain it caused, she's grateful that it led to us having the relationship we have now. I actually agree with her, though I would never want to go through that experience again. We've also learned to navigate social situations better. We've been honest with close friends about what happened, and most have been supportive of our decision to work through it. Kevin moved across the country about 3 months ago, which has made things easier. I heard through mutual friends that he's been struggling with guilt about what happened, but I honestly don't care. Some betrayals are unforgivable, and this was one of them. Rachel has never asked me to forgive Kevin or suggested that we should try to repair that friendship. She understands that his betrayal was separate from hers, and that I get to decide how to handle that relationship. A few people have criticized me for staying with Rachel and suggested that I'm being weak or naive. I understand why people feel that way, but I disagree. Choosing to rebuild a marriage after an affair isn't the easy path. It's actually much harder than getting divorced. It requires incredible strength, commitment, and vulnerability from both partners. I didn't stay with Rachel because I was afraid to be alone or because I didn't think I deserved better. I stayed because I believed our marriage was worth saving and because Rachel proved through her actions that she was committed to change. Not every marriage can or should survive an affair. But for couples who are both willing to do the work, it's possible to rebuild something stronger than what existed before. The key factors that made our recovery possible were Rachel's genuine remorse, her willingness to be completely transparent, her commitment to therapy and change, and her patience with my healing process. It also helped that the affair was emotional rather than physical, though I know that distinction matters more to some people than others. For me, the betrayal was devastating regardless of whether they'd slept together. I'm glad I trusted my instincts and investigated my suspicions. Going through Rachel's phone wasn't ideal, but it was necessary to get the truth. I will make the same choice again. I'm also glad I didn't make any permanent decisions in the immediate aftermath of discovering the affair. I was so angry and hurt that I probably would have filed for divorce if I'd acted on those initial emotions. Taking time to process what happened and getting professional help allowed me to make a more thoughtful decision about my marriage. I'm grateful I gave us a chance to work through this. Rachel and I are planning to start trying for kids next year, which feels like the ultimate testament to how far we've come. I'm genuinely excited about our future together in a way I wasn't sure would be possible again. We're not the same people we were before the affair, and we don't have the same marriage. But what we've built together is stronger, more honest, and more intentional than what we had before. Recovery from infidelity is possible, but it requires both partners to be willing to do the hard work of rebuilding trust and creating a new foundation for their relationship. I'm grateful that Rachel and I were both willing to fight for our marriage. This will be my final update on this situation. We're focused on moving forward and building the life we want together. Thanks to everyone who offered support and advice during the darkest period of our marriage.